Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to my channel for another 1/6 scale third-party unlicensed video game figure unboxing and review. Today, we're taking a look at the World Box and One Toys Deicide, aka Kratos, based off his appearance in God of War Ragnarok. Now, I got mine at a discount organised by 1/6 Kit. I've popped a link to Kit's site in the description for your reference purposes only. This is by no means a promotional video, this is a review. If you're heading down to the description, why not hit that subscribe, bell notification icon, and join button, so you're notified as soon as a brand new video game figure review goes live on the channel. So this is the slip cover. What you just saw on the turntable, that's the inner cardboard box. As for the artwork, up front, some actual figure photography, the sculpted beard is a dead giveaway. I love this. The heavy film grain, the snow effect in the background, the grayscale look with the red thrown in, it's all working for me. We've got some gold foil detail work top and bottom that wraps all the way around the box, a Deicide Ragnarok logo done in high gloss so it contrasts against the satin finish for everything else, and a sticker. I translated it, it literally just says that this is the pre-order bonus version. What you're about to witness is one of the best 1/6 scale figure unboxing experiences I've ever had, and that's saying something. I've been around for a while. You'd think that I've experienced almost everything when it comes to 1/6 scale figure boxes. No. One Toys and World Box, they have genuinely impressed me with this. You'll see what I mean. The box itself is made of this very thick, sturdy cardstock. Then we've got his shield up front. Not all of it is done in gold foil, just these two sections. It makes it look slightly more moody and shadowy. They've continued that effect on the side of the box. A sliver of gold foil, then the rest of the artwork is a lot darker. Oh, and there's also a little bit of one of the chains of the Blades of Chaos coming down from the top of the box and working its way to the back. Speaking of the back, all of his accessories are back here. We've got the shield, the Leviathan axe, the collapsed version of the shield, both Blades of Chaos, Mimir's head, and the Dropnir spear. Going high gloss red for this artwork, when light hits it, it absolutely pops. I reckon it's time to get Kratos himself out here. Step 1 in that process is to split these two halves of the box open. They're held in place with magnets, a nice solid thunk as they close. But did you see that? The way they've perfectly mirrored the shape of the 1/6 scale shield inside the box, with the middle part of the artwork of the shield on the outside. Very clever. So too is this. As you split these halves apart, there's some little red ribbons on the inside that push the inner foam layers up. They are presenting themselves to you. I've never seen another 1/6 scale figure maker do this. It feels theatrical, it feels special. I'm hoping that if they give us more characters from God of War Ragnarok, and please do, One Toys and World Box, they keep this style of unboxing experience. As for the God of War himself, first in-hand impressions, he's really heavy. This is one solid 1/6 scale figure, and he's big too. What we're going to do now is get all of his accessories laid out in the light box and take a closer look at everything he comes with. Starting off with the display base first. Certain things I really like about this base. The regular old height adjustable crotch grabber, no waist clamps, no flight poles, the rough finish, the texture for the artwork up on top, and the fact that the artwork wraps all the way around. But by far the best thing about this base is the drawer. 1/6 scale figure bases are usually quite tall. There is room for a drawer like this. I don't know why more companies aren't doing it, because now you can store some of his spare accessories inside the base. Not the shield, not the Dropnir spear, but his Blades of Chaos perhaps. Let's talk about the stuff I don't like. Number 1, the size of it. Kratos is huge. There is no way he's going to look comfortable on this teeny tiny little compact base. And number 2, Deicide Ragnarok right there on the front of the base. One Toys World Box? No. third-party names on the front of bases, that is a faux pas. If only they'd have just printed the Omega symbol and Ragnarok, that would have been sufficient. It's not really an accessory, it's more so part of his outfit. This is his fur cape, he was wearing it at the start of Ragnarok. I don't think we ever saw it again. I need to go back and replay Ragnarok, I adore that game. We've got some sculpted plastic bits up front for this harness. Very well painted, but the fur isn't weathered. It looks slightly disheveled. I would have liked to have seen some snow on it. That's something I might just have to try and fix myself. I'll show you what he looks like wearing this a little bit later. The sculpt work alone on these shields is blowing my mind. Usually third-party companies' sculpt work looks soft and muddy, it lacks detail. Not the case for either of these. Look at that sculpt work on the inside of the shield. Both of these are made of plastic. The expanded one has a decent weight to it though, but they look metallic and aged and worn like there's a patina to them. I don't think the shields should have been made out of die cast. Some of the other bits, maybe. We'll discuss them in just a second. The only complaint I have with these shields is that you have to switch the adjustable clip between them. That, I mean, yes, it's fine, it's easy, it's doable, but if you do it frequently, you may stress out the peg ports and then the clip won't sit in either of the shields very securely. I think 2 clips was the way to go. We'll be going into way more detail on both of these head sculpts once we install them on the body. For now, all you really need to know is that we get 2 of them, one where he's grumpy as usual, and a straight-up Spartan Rage head sculpt. Mimir has never looked so good in 1/6 scale. Compared to the Mondo version, I was happy with this. I still like it. But the horns aren't metallic enough, there's no 5 o'clock shadow for the bald head, the grossness underneath it doesn't look anywhere near as realistic, and the skin tone and skin texture. The Mondo one comes across chalky almost, whereas the One Toys version, it looks so realistic. There's a subtle translucency to the skin. It almost has this subsurface scattering look to it, and that adds to the realism. Seeing as though this is the Ragnarok version of Mimir, he does have his second eye, unlike what we saw with Mondo. Interestingly enough, they went with the level 1 Blades of Chaos. Not my favourite look for them, I would have preferred level 9, but either way, I'm not complaining, these things look bloody fantastic. There's some red shading on the back of both of them, a black wash in the sculpted cracks and the pitting effect, then a lighter brown dry brush for the handle, and real metal chains on the bottom for both of them. The Dropnir Spear is one of my new favourite God of War weapons, and I'm so glad they included it. It's huge. It's taking up the entire frame. I will be displaying him with this. It's quite sharp up top, so do be careful not to spike yourself. Paint applications wise, silver, some darker shading on the tip of the spear, some gold sections, copper coloured pieces, and a black wash. This is a real fabric tassel, and it's tattered around the edges. It's not wired, not that it really needed to be. The Leviathan axe. This thing is beautiful. The wood effect for the handle, that is sculpted wood grain. The wrappings down below. But it's the top part of the axe that impresses me the most. The little symbols, the lighter silver for the blade, how shiny it is. Compared to the Mondo one, yeah. I don't think the Mondo is even comparable. This flat-looking silver, it's a night and day difference, just like what we saw with Mimir. Real string, yes, it looks more realistic, tied around his belts with actual string. But doing the tying around Kratos' belts, it's going to be so fiddly. Couldn't they have just faked it? Gone with the hook mechanism, like Mondo? Yes, it's not as believable, but it's on the back anyway. You're never really going to see the string. They could have used it on the front and then a hook mechanism on the back. We get a pouch, This, in the 2018 game, was used to hold Faye's ashes. It's got some simulated weight to it with the cinching up on top and some leather grain texture, wrinkling and stitching sculpted in. Then for the sheath for his knife, beautifully well sculpted and painted on both sides. You can remove the knife from it, it sits in there very securely. It's made of plastic, but that shine from the edge of the blade does make it look like it's made of die cast. Comparing it to the Mondo knife, yeah, there's more texture with the Mondo one. The hilt is slightly different, but if I had to pick between these two, I'm going with One Toys and World Box. And lastly, a full array of hands. Is that dried blood on his knuckles? I think it is. If that's the look they were going for, they nailed it. For his right hands, he's got the drop near spear ring on every single one of them. These, by the way, are his closed fists. Then we've got gripping hands. The fingers are just soft enough so that you can pry them open to insert weapons into them without having to grab a hairdryer. These would be great for a Spartan Rage pose. We've got these fingers curled in, splayed out finger open palm hands. And already installed on him, right out of the box, 2 relaxed open palm hands. What we're going to do now is get the God of War himself out here. Standing straight up and down in the light box, no crazy poses or anything like that. I didn't say accessories because there's a shit ton of stuff on him. We've got the mirror, we've got his Leviathan axe, the pouch, and also his knife around the back. What the hell is this? Since when were third-party companies able to achieve at this high of a level? It feels like a licensed God of War Kratos from Ragnarok. That's how good this is. That's like the highest level of praise I can give them. Is he perfect? No, he's not perfect. Couple of things we need to discuss, but nothing figure-breaking. Just standing there, the outfit is layered, there's so much to look at, there's plenty of weapon storage, heaps of skin texture on the exposed parts of his body, some visible joints, and the head sculpt. I showed them to you in the accessory segment, but that was a sneak preview. Now, rotating around in front of you, I think you will agree that that is one impressive looking sculpt. Is it the best Kratos in 1/6 scale I've ever seen? I think it might be. Up close and personal, kicking things off with Kratos' first head sculpt. This may very well be the more neutral of the two sculpts. But it's not all that neutral, is it? He's still absolutely pissed. He's got this furrowed brow look, the wrinkling for his forehead and the black shading under his eyes helps sell this expression. Then with a head tilt forward because he's looking up ever so slightly, he looks mean as hell. The skin tone is about right for me. It's not too pink and it's not too white either, it's somewhere in the middle. Unfortunately, there is a skin tone mismatch between the sculpt and the body, but it's only visible up close. From a distance, it looks perfectly fine. The red matches, there's even some veins sculpted in for the red sections, the scar is present on the right side, and the beard is chock full of sculpted detail. I can even see some little hair strands just off the main sculpt work for the beard, making that look more realistic. Compared to the Mondo one, just ignore the color, I have repainted this. As it comes out of the box, it looks more like that, a lot pinker. I much prefer the World Box and One Toys head sculpt. Something about the Mondo one always looked a little bit Santa Claus-y to me. Dude, this head sculpt is so good. I like the other one. I dig the neutral expression sculpt. But after this video is done, I'm never taking this head sculpt off the body. It's found its permanent home. The detail inside the mouth alone makes it worth it. The teeth are a little bit translucent, the tongue is wet and glossy, and there's tonsils inside the back of the mouth there. But the vein work on the red section, that sells this expression. He's screaming. His Spartan rage meter is full. His veins are popping out, and he's about to kick some serious butt. This One Toys Kratos is the gift that keeps on giving. The head sculpts are sort of compatible with the Mondo body. Not properly, the neck connector doesn't fit that ball joint, it's too small, so I ditched it. Now the head sculpt is sitting over the base of the bare neck, and it's secure enough. Like, it's not going to go anywhere unless he takes a shelf dive or you happen to knock him over. Range of motion is more restricted because of that. I don't care. The Mondo figure looks so much better using the World Box sculpts. Back to the neutral sculpt and the World Box body. Let's talk about the only real cons with this. Then all the rest of the stuff we have to discuss are pros. So the first one, exposed joints. We've got an exposed joint at the shoulder and another one for his midsection. You can bring the armor and the fur down, just tug on it a little, and you can completely obscure that joint. The only one you now have to worry about is the shoulder joint. But good news, they also include that cloak, so you can hide that too, and I'll show you what that looks like a little bit later. The other complaint I have is pleather. We've got some pleather on this guy. I thought this was genuine leather at first, but I gave it a smell. It isn't. It smells synthetic, and getting this amount of detail stamped into real leather at 1/6 scale because it needs to be super thin, I don't think it would have been possible. Could they have gone sculpted plastic? Yeah, potentially. But then we wouldn't have had any range of motion for his elbow joints. They were stuck between a rock and a hard place. They went with something they could etch detail into, and that was going to be flexible enough so that you could still move the joints underneath it. Could you maybe ditch these pieces and expose those elbow joints? Sure, why the heck not? But I'm not a fan of visible joints on my 1/6 scale figures, so I'm going to leave these two pieces in place. Around the back, the fur is synthetic. It is not real fur. It's got a plasticky look about it. So no animals were harmed in the making of this Kratos. You can adjust the fur, you saw that around the front. The hook for the Leviathan axe is properly functional, we can remove it, and there's even some little sculpted heads on the bottom. Just watch out for the pleather strap. The more you use this, the more you move this forward and back, the quicker you are going to degrade that piece of pleather. At least the harness that goes underneath his arm here, and the shoulder pads, they're made of sculpted PVC plastic. This outer one is more flexible than the main big one. That's because it's connected on the underside. It's not a word I use very often to describe sculpt work. I'm going to use it today. It's perfect. The fidelity, the sharpness of the texture, and the wrinkling, that one right there, that, you cannot tell me, doesn't look like real genuine leather with stitching around the edge of it. Even this piece, there's scratching and wrinkling on it. That comes across as though it's a rivet on top of a washer. You can see the circle underneath it. The buckle looks functional. It isn't. This is all sculpted plastic. But like I showed you just a second ago, it is adjustable. You can move all of this stuff around, or if you're more adventurous than I am, maybe just take it all off. I wish there was some more skin texture on this arm. I get it, they sculpted one side and then flipped it. Considering this one is hidden by everything, I understand why there's not more detail on this. Compared to the body though, there's more skin texture, more vein work, more wrinkling, more detail to look at. This isn't devoid of all that stuff. We still have some of it. There's a vein right there, actually. It doesn't look as realistic as the head sculpt and torso to me. Is it a deal breaker? No, I don't think so. Coming down to his gauntlets, an asymmetrical design. This side has an armor plate on it with some red detail work, a wash over the top, whereas on the other, these stacked leather-looking panels with a sculpted bandage over the top. I'm curious to find out if he's got the scars underneath them, but I don't think so. Let's just have a quick look. Yeah, nah, as to be expected, no chain scars underneath the gauntlets. There's some sculpt work and paint applications. They look quite skinny towards the bottom because the gauntlets have to fit over the top. Not a display option I would ever consider anyway, even if the chain scars were present, because now you can see the wrist peg. If you do want to have the chain scars visible. The Mondo one has them sculpted and painted in, so you could always just go with the Mondo figure and then you'd have those scars present. I've been avoiding it. Let's talk about the strings. These were awful. They still are. They're dangling around all over the place. They start to shred as you're tying them. Use some tweezers. Maybe the ones that come in my figure first aid kit, because that's what I use to tie the knots on my copy. Just take your time with it, is the only advice I have. There's no secret to getting this done correctly. You literally just have to do it however you can. Around the back, we've got the knife. It is removable from the sheath. You saw that in the accessory segment. The bigger bag, this is sculpted plastic. You can't open it. The smaller bag off to the left side. Then on his right, I've got Mimir currently. I used a looser knot for Mimir, just in case I want to take him off and have Kratos holding onto him as though they're having some kind of philosophical discussion. That sheen right there, just on the edge of the belt. So real looking. It's like Kratos has tied this belt multiple times and it's worn away the top surface coating of the leather. But it's not leather. This is sculpted and it's adjustable. It's meant to go somewhere towards the middle, I think. I checked the video game model for reference and I copied it as closely as I possibly could. The main belt also sculpted, there's fur underneath it. Then we've got this skirt piece hanging down. This one is plastic, but the one underneath it is a very thin, lightweight, textured faux suede material. The same thing can be said about these tassel skirt bits. There's a raw edge on both sides and the bottom. Try not to touch them too much because that raw edge, as you can see, that was completely coincidental, not planned, is active, which means if you touch it and you pull one of those strings, you are going to shred these and the strings are going to become a lot more prominent. Just avoid them as much as you can when posing. The pants are heavily textured and heavily weathered. They are soiled. They're completely disgusting. Considering Kratos and Atreus have been stomping around, killing all kinds of stuff, this makes sense in my headcanon. The knee pads, plastic, adjustable, they're on elastic straps, you can move them around. Then we've got a split-cut boot design. This piece isn't as free-floating as I would like, but you can move it up a smidge, then you can access almost the full range of motion for the ankles. There's a black wash in the sculpt work, and some fully sculpted tread on the underside. I want to find out, what does this guy look like wearing his cloak? Is it a display option I would ever consider rocking long term? It's more of a cape than a cloak really, but now that it's installed, yeah, I love this. And it was an easy install too. You take the head sculpt off, you bring this arm up, tuck this piece underneath the arm, then bring the other part of the harness over the top of his shoulder, sitting in place, pop the head sculpt back on, bring the arm down, done. He's completely seamless now. We've hidden the joint at the shoulder, which was one of my biggest complaints with this. And it bulks him up at the traps. Not that he needed more bulk. He looks somehow more proportionate. I reckon he was designed with this cape/cloak in mind. Once you install this, I would maybe leave it there because mine is starting to look pretty sus right there. That is a very thin piece of plastic. And on the underside, I'm noticing some stress marks. Limit how often you take this off and then reinstall it because the last thing you'd want to do is damage that piece at the front. One more thing to try out, then we can move on to comparisons. To install the collapsed shield on his gauntlet, start off on the wrist, that's the thinnest point, then slowly wiggle it up until it grips in place. I wish they used magnets like Mondo. Yes, that one is more free-floating than this is once it's on there, but the clamp, it's very tight on the gauntlet. I'm worried that if you do this repeatedly, you're going to scuff up the paint applications on this armor piece, or you'd see some transfer of gold paint onto his gauntlet. For a quick side-by-side comparison, I want to preface this by saying I have repainted the Mondo Kratos. I did my best, I'm happy with the skin tone, but not the red. I stuffed up the red. It looks far too pink. I'm going to have to redo it, and I absolutely will. For the longest time, the figure on the right has been our only 1/6 scale God of War release. He's still the only officially licensed one. But he pales in comparison to the figure on the left. The One Toys and Worldbox Kratos is bigger, more proportionate. He actually has a neck. The outfit is more detailed, and 2 killer head sculpts. I don't want to make it sound like the Mondo one is terrible. It isn't. If you have him and you're happy with him, that's awesome. But I strongly prefer the new One Toys and Worldbox Kratos. Please, we need an Atreus and a God of War Ragnarok Thor. While you're at it, an Odin, maybe a Balder. Go for your life. You've started the conversation with Kratos. Finish it with some side characters. This gives you a rough idea of how the God of War scales alongside normal 1/6 scale releases by Hot Toys. Endgame Thor is the closest representation of the God of Thunder that I could find that mirrors his look from the game. Am I going to display these two standing next to each other? Absolutely not. But it's there if you want it. Going over articulation, I'm curious to see how this body works because it was specifically made for Kratos by Worldbox. Starting off with his head sculpt, it's on a fixed neck as part of the upper torso, but there's a double ball peg up underneath the head itself. Looking forward to there, it's restricted by the beard, of course. Going up to there, which is further than I expected. Swivel and some pivot side to side. His arms, they're an asymmetrical design. This side is going to be more restricted by the shoulder pad, but on his left side, his arm goes up to there, forward and back. There's a touch of butterfly action that also hinges up and down. Swivel at the elbow joint, which is a ratcheted single bend getting you to 45-ish. It's this piece that's stopping it from going further. You could always take it off if you wanted. Then for the wrist peg, it's a ratcheted hinge and swivel. There's a joint at the midsection hidden by the fur and another one at the waist. This is sculpted plastic. This is sculpted plastic. Going forward to there, as things collide, just watch out for the paint applications. Swivel and pivot side to side. His legs will go forward to there comfortably. You can force them to go higher, but then this stuff will also move up along with them. Going out to there, swivel at the upper thigh. Double bend at the knee, going to past 90, but only just as the boot guard collides with the back of his thigh. And then a double ball peg and a split cut boot design for the ankles. Good for forward and back rotation, as well as ankle tilt. Wrapping up on the One Toys X Worldbox, Deicide, aka Kratos, based off his appearance in God of War Ragnarok. He's so close to being perfect, it's not even funny. If you want a God of War figure in your collection, skip the Mondo. Go straight for this. You might be a stickler for only having licensed stuff in your collection, I understand. But sometimes, the licensed product isn't as good as the third-party stuff. This is evidence of that. You don't need to have a license to make a banger 1/6 scale figure. They straight up cooked with this. He's proportionate, he's big and bulky where he needs to be thanks to the custom body. The outfit is just gorgeous from head to toe, but there are some drawbacks. Number one, visible joints. You can solve that by moving the outfit around and using his cloak, so that's not a massive deal. But the other ones are lack of range of motion. He is more restricted because of the size of the body and the way the outfit has been constructed. Then the third one, pleather. I'm worried about the pleather. Using that material for pieces that sit over high traffic joints, his elbow joint specifically, you're putting a lot of pressure on those pieces. I plan to leave him standing straight up and down, but this is the God of War. He lends himself to being in dynamic poses. You are going to have to be careful. You can ditch the pleather pieces, but then the visible elbow joints come into play, so it's going to be a balancing act trying to get this guy to look as good as possible while maintaining the outfit. At the end of this, do I recommend him? I think the answer is clear, by now, surely. Go ahead and get him. If you are trying to decide between the Mondo Kratos or this, I'll save you the hassle. Just get this. I highly doubt you are going to be disappointed. Now, I got mine at a discount from 16kit. I popped a link to his site in the description for your reference purposes only. This is by no means a promotional video. This is a review. All opinions have been 100% my own. If you're heading down to the description, why not hit that subscribe, bell notification icon, and join button if you like the sound of seeing your name in the end credits of my reviews. Like, comment, and subscribe. We'll catch you in the next video.